guys, I'm Becky, and you're watching the Boo Friendly Ghost block. So this is part of a value block range that we are bringing out with RJF Makes. RJF Makes is myself, but it's my brand, my own brand. We are basically every so often releasing a affordable block. When I say affordable, it's in British pounds, £2. So that's £2. It's quite cheap. But within the first 24 hours of this video and the pattern being released, it will be half price. And then after that, within the first 24 hours, after the first 24 hours, it will go back up to £2. So grab it while you can. All these actual sheets, these value print, these value patterns are going to work alongside a video. So they are about 5 to 6 pages, all of them. Obviously, just ignore that for a minute. 5 to 6 pages of cutting out basic instructions and templates. And sometimes there won't be templates, sometimes there will be. This one is FPP. Now, the reason why we've just done it basic, because obviously for the value of the price, you'll need to work alongside the video. It's just basically to cover the cost of doing the free block of the month, which will be the videos that are on the YouTube channel. And basically, it's just to subsidise and make sure that we are hitting financial and keeping the business going to be able to do this free content. So we're going to be doing this block today. I'm not going to teach you everything. I'm just going to teach you how to do a small section FPP. Then I'm going to turn off the camera, obviously, and then within a few minutes, have everything sorted and all the papers attached to the correct sections. And then I will come back and then sew the complete block together. FPP is one of the accurate ways of doing quilting on patchwork or quilting, whatever you want to call it. And when we say FPP, it's paper foundation piece, and we basically got paper attached. Now this paper doesn't stay on in your quilt. You rip it all off afterwards. I've just kept it on just to make sure the block stays the size. And stays the size and it doesn't stretch while I'm putting on the borders and stuff. I personally will keep the papers in until I have actually completed the rest of the blocks. Now, when I say the rest of the blocks, like over the year, I'm going to collect as many blocks as I can from the value range and make as many as I can. And then I'm going to sew them together and make a sampler quilt. So it's totally up to you. Now, these are a good size to put on a tote bag. Like so this one could go for trick-or-treating on a tote bag. I've done it to a size where it's easy to make it into something else if you don't want to make the sampler quilt. Now, the good thing about this size is, and I'm going to show you the free block of the month, which is found on the website, this one. So when you finish building the free blocks, they will actually fit the value range. Now, the value range will always be on the same kind of theme as the free blocks that are out. So that will fit there, and then you can have your wording. So it's technically an interchangeable block. So whatever the wording is there, it will go with the free block if you don't want to like the ghost or anything. Or if you like the ghost and you want to make it into something else, you can just make the ghost section. It's totally up to you. So this is the free block for this month. It's called Bat Out of Hell. You can download this from the shop. That's rjfmakes.com. And you'll see the free digital download section. Okay, so this one is also the value range. So you can get this from rjfmakes.com and you just go to the value range. You'll need a printer, obviously, to print off. Now, I've gone ahead and printed off the templates here. And on this one here, the O, you will need to print this page twice. So I have just kind of mentioned ×2 there. When you print it out, please make sure your printer is set to 100% or actual size. Print off this page first before you print off any of the other templates, and to make sure that is measuring 1 inch. If it's not measuring 1 inch, just do an adjustment on your printer, and then basically it will and then keep reprinting until you get it right. Now you can notice that it's all like cut up into sections. That's because when you sew it all together, it will make the goes. So today I'm just going to show you this section here, and then I'm going to show you at least like another section, and then we're going to sew all the pieces together. Right, so the first page is a bit about the disclaimer. Please read. I don't mind people teaching, but please just message me if you're going to teach it. Please, you can go ahead and sell as many of the makes that you make from this, but you can't sell this pattern. This is a free anyway, so what's the point of selling it? For the fabric, for the background, you're going to need 1/2 meter. For the black, I'm just going to call it black, you're going to need a fat quarter or 1/4 of a meter. And for the white, you're going to need a 1/4 of a meter or a fat quarter. The cutting out is pretty simple. I've separated the cutting out into sections. So this part here and this part here is all about the ghost. Then this B section, this little section here, is all about this B here, because they're all actually individual blocks built together to make one large block. And then the O is that section there, and then you've got your side and top borders here. So the for instance, the ghost, when I say section A, section C, if I just click these over, you'll see there is a letter inside with a numbers. That letter A is the section A within the cutting out. And then like so the section D in your cutting out is here. So also because there's 2 different colours to cut out, there's 2 bits of pieces you need to cut out for section D. The thing about FPP is the letter means the section within that block, and then the number is the number of sequence that you sew it in. So like so if we will start off at number 1, attach that, and then we will sew number 2 on, and so on and so on. But I will get into more depth on that when we get along. So you've got your cutting out section there, and it continues there. This is just explaining what the completed units will look like for inside the block. And then here is the basic instructions that I'm going to talk you through on the video. Just like stitch length, and where you sew between each section. But follow the video. If you're not understanding the words, please follow the video. It's so much easier. And then here is basically going into instructions on how to actually join the sections, the units together to make the actual block. And it's pretty straightforward. Okay, like I say, this isn't a free pattern. This is the £2 pattern, or £1 within the first 24 hours of the release. Now, as you can see, I've got it actually on some paper here. Now, this is FPP paper, so it's easy to rip away. I'm using pattern trace paper from the UK, which is A4 size. Now there is American brand that you can get, which is letter size. Now your block will be a bit smaller if you're printing out in the US or on US paper, but it's not going to be that much smaller. It's marginal basically. So as you can see through this paper. Let me just get something underneath it. As you can see through this paper. So the ideal thing is when we are sewing on the this side, we can see the fabric through on this side, because you attach the fabric to the wrong side and you're sewing on the right side. As you can see, I've printed out the O twice. I've just kept the B I've cut the top and kept the B for something else, just in case I need it. So yeah, let me just get into the fabric requirements. So you'll need some white, some black, and then you'll need some black background. Now on the actual block, I've used orange as my background. I'm just going to use purple because obviously I'm going to obviously end up with 2 blocks per sampler quilt because obviously one block is my tester. I'm making sure the pattern's right, and then obviously I'll be doing one in this demonstration on the video. So I wanted an opposite colour. It's totally up to you. You can do a pink ghost if you want, green writing, totally up to you. So just make a note of your colours. So for instance here, I know my orange is my purple, so my fabric A is my purple basically. So go ahead, starch your fabric. So I use either best press or Dylon. Let me just get those. So I either use best press or Dylon. So I spray my fabric first as much as possible, let it soak in for a few hours, and then I give it a good press. And the reason why I do that is just means that I get an accurate finish, and when I'm pressing the fabric, as you can see, that's kept nice and flat, and even where there is no paper attached to it, it's kept nice and flat. Also stops fraying or cuts down fraying as well. Okay, so the next thing is the cutting gate. Now, cutting gate, I advise you to at least grab some post-it notes. I haven't done labels because obviously it's free, not free, but a really low value range. So I've done some labels myself. So every time I've cut out a piece of the fabric, so likes of here I've got the H1. So I write H1, and then I'll just write what block it's for, the Boo Ghost. So that's all my Boo Ghost cutting out, and I pin and label up, and then I've got my B block here, and then I've got my O blocks, so I've got both O blocks here, and then I've got my borders here. So just make sure you definitely label up as you go. I'm just making sure I don't mix these up now. Label up as you go and keep them safe. The few tools that you're going to need is on your sewing machine, you're going to need an open toe foot so you can see where you're sewing. You're going to need some thread, so I'm using Orifil thread, when I can get this, there you go. I'm using Orifil thread, so I'm using this one. So I'm using a, I can't remember what weight this is, 50 weight. I'm using a 50 weight. I'm also using a size 90-14 needle. The larger the needle, the easier it's going to be for you when you rip away the paper because the perforations are bigger, the holes are bigger. I'm also going to be using a stitch length 1.1 on my sewing machine, but it varies on sewing machines. So I've put here, it's anything between 1.1 to 1.3 millimeters stitch length. The smaller the stitch length, the easier the paper is to rip away. So just always remember that the smaller the stitch length, it is easier to rip away the paper. Now, I don't get anything less than a 1 personally, but a 1.1 is ample enough. The other things that I'm going to use are pins. I'm going to need 1 or 2 pins, so I've got just normal glass head pins here. You're going to need a couple of rotary cutters, or 1 rotary cutter and a pair of scissors. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is on your papers. So when I sew on the fabric and cut away the excess fabric, I'll be using this rotary cutter because this is my fabric rotary cutter. On the actual templates, you'll see that there's a dotted line all the way around, and there's like a blank white frame going around it. That's your seam allowance. Now, I've got this rotary cutter for when I need to cut the paper uh, cut the block back once I've completely put all of the patches on, attached all the patches. I need to cut it back, so I will cut it back to that dotted line all the way around on both of those because that's both of the O pieces. So I will use the paper, what I call my paper rotary cutter. It's sharp, but I just don't want to cut paper with this one, even though this is thin. They call it tea bag paper, this type of paper. So it's thin enough. The other thing I personally like to use is a fabric glue pen by Soline. That's just to attach my first patch to every block unit. You don't need these, but I advise you to have them or grab them whenever you can. These are add a 1/4 inch rules. I've got a 6 inch and a 12 inch. And what it's got is, let me just see if I can focus that. It's got a lip here, so as you can see, it's got like a step. So when we fold back the template, we will butt the fold right underneath on that lip so it can't move, and then we will cut the excess fabric away. You don't need this, you can use a box standard quilter's rule, but you just got to make sure that your 1/4 inch markings is dominant because we will only leave a 1/4 inch overhang as seam allowance. Then you're just going to need some snips as well. Right, so let's jump right into it. Right, let's find the ghost part that I'm going to be working on. Let me just put these letter pieces to one side and make some room. Okay, so I'm going to do a few of these and then I'll come back after. So I'm going to do these two as they're on this page. Okay, so I'm just going to get my paper cutter and just cut right in the centre of those units. Pop that to one side because I'm not using that one at the moment. Okay, make sure you got enough paper around that dotted edge on the outside. So let's work on the C pieces first. So let me dig out all the C pieces. Would have been ideal if I put these in order, but I was cutting this at like 12 o'clock last night. So, oh, you'll also need an iron and a pressing mat. If you are one of those people that likes to use a roller, please go ahead, use the roller, but I prefer using a pressing mat and an iron. My pressing mat's a bit grubby, so please don't judge. Right, so I'm just getting all the C pieces. Okay. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is just grab a child's school ruler. Might be ideal. And where all these dark lines, solid lines are, we're going to fold it. So, for instance, we're going to fold it there and there. This is so we can identify where the patches need to be stuck or attached in between, just so we've got like an idea. So as you can see, I've got a few creases on the back. I'm just going to just do the rest of the creases. Okay, so that's just to help us. Okay, so we're going to find the first number, so that's number 1 in our case. And it's there basically. So my number 1, number 5's in the same pile there. So we're going to work on this section here, but on the wrong side. So remember, this is the wrong side and this is the right side. The right side is where we sew on top, the wrong side is where we attach the fabric to. And when we attach the fabric, we're attaching it wrong side to wrong side on the first piece, on the first section. So we've got C1 section there. I'm just going to pop a bit of glue on it, get a C1 piece. So I've got the wrong side of my fabric. I'm going to stick that down, and I'm making sure I've got at least 1/4 inch overhang all the way around that section. So if I was to hold this up to the light, can't really see that, but if I was to hold this up to the light, my fabric ends there, 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 and there. You need a really good amount of section all the way around, especially if you've got seam allowances there, you need it to cover the seam allowance. So that's stuck into place. I'm going to pop the glue stick back and pop the pin back into this one. Okay, so the next section we need is C2. So I know that's a black one. It's one of his eyes. And obviously my C4 is there as well, so I'm just going to put that there. First thing I'm going to do is, we have folded it already between the C1 and C2, so we're going to fold it again. So I'm going to use this rule. We're going to pop the rule on that solid line and fold it over and give that a good crease. I'm going to get my add 1/4 inch roll. I've got the lip, and the lip's going to sit on the fabric side, and the side that hasn't got the lip is going to rest on top of the paper, and I'm going to put that right next to the actual fold. Now I've got a bit of excess here overhanging. I'm just going to trim that, get rid of that piece there, and I've got an actual 1/4 inch overhang here. So I'm going to get my next C2 piece fabric right side facing up. We're going to keep this folded, and we're going to go this fabric, got fluff on it, this fabric right side facing down. I'm going to match up those edges there. I'm going to keep my finger on, but lift that section up, put my finger underneath and flip that over. And I'm going to get a pin. I'm just going to pin through all those layers, so that's the paper and the 2 pieces of fabric. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is, so from that little corner unit, that little corner there, that little corner just on that solid line, I am not going to go past anywhere. I'm just going to go from there down that solid line to there. I'm not going to go past. Now make sure you've got a stitch length 1.1 and you are making sure that you sew on that line. Right, so I'm going to pop this down and just sew, make sure my needle's down, so I'm not doing it by hand, the needle, to make sure it goes in that area. I'm going to set my stitch length, take that needle out now, set my stitch length to 1.1 on my sewing machine. Okay, and then I'm just going to sew just between where I showed you. I'm going to cut my thread. Okay, I'm just going to get rid of that excess. Okay, so I've just sewed from there to there. As you can see, it's not a big stitch length and it's not a long row. And we're just going to press that open. I've got my grubby mat. It is a bit grubby, isn't it? It needs recovering. Right, okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is press that to set the seam. I'm not going to yank it, I'm just going to rest it over, put my thumb there, use the nose of my iron. Now if you've got a smaller iron, it's ideal, but I'm just using my large one. Okay, and then we're going to move on to the next section. So we're going to flip this over. We've just done section 2. We're moving on to section 3. So ignore the letter now at the start of the blocks. The reason being is we've got our patches here and we know this is section C. Okay, so we're going to fold it between section 2 and section 3. And as you can see, I've got a 1/4 of an inch overhang here, and my seam allowance is there, and I've got quite a bit over there, overhanging the seam allowance. Now I'm just going to get my, add a 1/4 inch rule, butt it up next to the fold, cut away the excess, and then we're going to find our C3 piece. Okay, so I've got my C3 piece. So we're going to have right side facing up on our work surface. Keeping this folded, you're going to have to keep your fingers nice and holding that down because it's only a small piece. And you're going to go right side to right side, match up those edges, keep your finger on it and open that up, and then just add a pin, pop that pin through, and then you're just going to sew from there to there, not past those solid lines. Then you're just going to pop your needle down, take that pin out, and just sew between those 2 marks. Okay, so I've got that attached. Gonna set that seam and press it open. Okay, so we're going to flip that back over. We're moving on to section 4 because we've just attached section 3. We're going on to section 4. So we're going to fold it between 3 and number 4. Okay, and then we are going to trim off the excess. And I know my number 4 is here. So right side facing up your fabric, right side facing down of this part. Hold your finger down, flip that over, and pin those pieces together. Make sure they're not folded underneath. And then we're just going to sew from that solid line to that solid line on that solid line there. So I've just gone from there. Oh, there we go. Just gone from there to there. Okay, I've just got a few threads, just a bit longer than what they should be, so I'm just going to snip those away. Okay, and then I'm just going to press that open. So that's seam. Don't yank it or pull it. Okay, I'm going to flip this over, and then we're working on section number 5 next. So we're going to fold it on the line between section 4 and section 5. Got my section 5 piece ready, and then we're just going to trim this back to a 1/4 of an inch away from that fold. Okay, make sure this is right side facing up, and right side facing down. Okay, and I'm just going to flip that over, add a pin, and you're just going to sew from that mark there to that mark there across that line there. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done that. We're going to press that open. Now personally, I just go one step further. Now this is totally up to you. But while I'm sewing on the other patches, this might be flapping around this section. So I'm just going to add a bit of glue within that section there, just to stop it from flapping around, and stick that down. I just don't want it getting caught up on the next patch that we have to sew on. Okay, so we're going to flip that over and we're moving on to section 6. Now section 6 is this piece here. So I'm going to fold it on that long line. Measure 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so I've got 1/4 of an inch overhang. And I'm just going to get my section 6, which is that piece there. Right side facing up. Mine's got a little paisley kind of leaves texture to it, so I'm making sure I've got that, because there is a right side and a wrong side of this white. Now if you're using a plain, there is no right or wrong. Like the Moda Grunge here, that's got a right side and a wrong side because it's obviously got a textured side and then a complete solid plain side. So just make sure that you are making sure that it's right side facing up when you put it on the work surface. Right, so we're going to pop this right side to right side. Now here you can see the markings of where the seam allowance is either side. Just make sure you've got enough of the patch 6 overhanging of that solid, of that dotted line. Flip that over, pop a pin in it. So you've got all the layers. Make sure it's not got any bits tucked under. Then I'm just going to sew from there to there along that solid line. Okay, so I've gone ahead and touched that, just give that a good set, and then just press that open. Just turn my iron up a little bit. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is flip it over and move on to section 7. So I'm going to get my my tiled score rule. Actually, I've cleaned it myself. That's why I put my washi tape on it. And I'm just going to fold it on that solid line in between the 7 and the 6. And then I'm just going to trim off that excess. So I've got 1/4 of an inch overhang. Then I'm going to get the patch 7. Pop that right side facing up. This right side facing down. Making sure I've got overhang, can see my seam allowance here and here, and if I pull it back I've got a bit of overhang there and a bit of overhang there. Going to open that up and pop a pin in. Okay, and then I'm just going to sew from that line there to that line there along that solid line. Okay, so flip that over, set that seam, open that up, and give that a good press. Okay, flip that over. Now we're working on C8. Now C8 is I'm using an opposite colour to the actual background of the pattern. So I'm using this purple. Okay, so C8, we're going to fold it on that diagonal line there. And we're going to trim away this excess fabric, but making sure we've got a 1/4 of an inch overhang for the seam allowance. Okay, so I'm going to get one of my patches, right side facing up. Make sure you got the textured size if you're using grunge. And the problem is, because this next bit is at an angle, and this is one of the reasons why I chose this, it's at an angle. So you will find that it's best if you have an overhang on this. You pop this round about just a 1/4 of an inch in from one of the corners, and you'll see your seam allowance matches up one of this sides here, and this solid line here matches up with there. Now we're not going to cut this away at the moment, we're just going to flip this over, pop a pin in it, and we're just going to sew from that mark there to that mark there across that diagonal line. Okay, so I've sewed from there to there. Let's trim away this excess. I don't like these little pieces of excess. Okay, so before we go any further, I'm going to flip this over and just see, hold this up, fold it, flip that over, and make sure the fabric is overhanging by a 1/4 of an inch of that solid line at the top, which it is, and it's overhanging that dotted line there, which it is. So as I know that's correct, I'm going to flip this over so I've got that bit exposed, and I'm now going to trim off that excess. The reason why I left it is so we can unpick it if needs be, unpick that line. Okay, so I'm now going to press this. Then I'm just going to flip it back over, and we're going to move on to section 9. Now, section 9 is a repeat of section 8, but on the opposite side. So we're going to fold it on that line, get rid of that excess fabric, apart from leaving your 1/4 of an inch overhang. Then I'll get your section 9 piece of fabric, and we want to leave that excess. So I'm just going to pop that down, like so. Flip that over and pop a pin in, and then I'm just going to sew on that diagonal line between that line and that line. Okay, so we're just gonna just double check. Let me get back. We're just gonna double check, make sure we've got enough overhang. I'll flip that over, like so. Flip that over. Yep, so I've got enough overhang here, and I'm going over that seam allowance there, so I'm fine with that. So we're going to trim away that excess. Open it out, so it's nice and open, and just trim off that excess there. Don't leave that excess in, because when you come to quilt your quilt, it's just going to be too bulky. And then we're just going to press that open. Sorry if you can hear little kids screaming. They're not being tortured. I don't know if you can hear them because I've got my microphone on. But if you can, we live right next door to a nursery, so you hear it quite often. Okay. Okay, so the last section we're going to move on to, flip that over, and we're going to move on to section 10. So we're going to now fold it on that solid line there. And we're going to trim away the excess. Okay, and then we're going to right side facing up on your C10 piece. And then we're just going to go back to the standard, matching up the edges because there's no diagonal patches to put on. So I've got an overhang here and here because my dotted lines are there. We're going to flip that over, pop a pin in it. Okay, and then we're just going to sew from there to there on that solid line. And then we are just going to press that and set that seam and then flip it over. And on all of my sections that I sew, all the units, like this is section C, and like section B and section A. That last piece I always glue within that section, just to stop this from flapping around. I'm just going to pop a little bit of glue down there, stick that down. This glue is ideal because it's a wash away glue, and it's also is only temporary. It's not a permanent fix. Okay, I'm going to flip this over because we've finished this completely now. So the next thing I'm going to do is trim it all the way around on that dotted line. I'm going to go over to my fabric rotary cutters. I personally like to use my add a 1/4 inch roll because I like to put the 1/4 inch part in that, or you can go ahead and use a rotary cutting roll, or you can go ahead and use scissors. Totally up to you, but you need to cut right on that dotted line. Now you see that it's cut off in the corners at an angle. That's the reason, is because when we join all the other sections together in that particular area, it's less bulky. I'm just going to use this to show you how easy it is. I'm just going to get rid of that bit. Got a little bit of cut off there. Goes at a bit of an angle, this one. This is one of the reasons why I chose it. So you just have to keep putting little pieces away. And there's a bit there. So I've done that bit. Okay, where those little pieces are, I'm just gonna that last line. There. So now you've got that done. That section's done. Obviously, you can see what part of that section is. It's obviously the eyes. I'm going to put that to one side. I'm going to do this next one with you, because obviously it's at an angle, and you can get an idea of when it comes to on the ghost. These ones are at an angle as well, so like the G, F, E, and so on. And I will do the A section, because obviously that's just one piece, and obviously that's, you're probably wondering where you need to sew it, so you don't. So let's start off with the A first on my A patch. The A and the B are together, the sections, because they're near enough the same pieces. So I'm just going to pop this back on it. Okay. Okay, so there's no folding on this one because it's one solid piece. It's only one patch. So you're going to pop this, flip this over so it's wrong side facing up. I'm actually going to put a bit more glue than what I normally do, just a squiggle. So that's wrong side of the paper facing up, wrong side of the fabric pointing down, and you are going to stick that down. Making sure, when I put this over, I've got an overhang of fabric below that line there, an overhang of fabric all the way around that dotted line, and then I'm just going to trim all this back to match the seam allowance. So the A and the B are exactly the same. Just trim off that corner because it's got one of those weird cut-out corners to stop the bulk. Now we're just going to trim this part back. Okay, so I've got that part done. That's the A part. I'm just going to put that to one side. So I've got my little part going. I'm going to move on to the H section. So I'm going to find all the H pieces, and then I'll show you this last unit, and then I'll go ahead and complete all the sections for the Boo Ghost, and then show you how to sew the Boo Ghost together. Let me find all my H sections. I have cut them out. Okay, so find where your number one is. My number one in the H section is this little triangle, which is its nose or mouth, whichever one you want to think it is. So you're gonna get a pin out. I'm gonna fold all these sections like we did beforehand. So on all those solid lines. Okay, and then I'm going to flip it over, and we can identify where the triangle is, the H1 section. Just going to pop a bit of glue. So that's wrong side to wrong side. Stick that on, and make sure you've got ample of overhang. So if I flip that over, I've got a, a, a well overhang of the seam allowance, which is what I need. Well over 1/4 inch over this solid line here, this little solid line, and I got well over 1/4 inch from this solid line over. Okay, so we're going to move on to H2, which is that top section there. So I'm going to put my H2. We're going to fold it on that solid line between H1 and H2. You can use a postcard if you haven't got a kid's ruler and school ruler. Just use a postcard. Or you can get the add a 1/4 inch rules. I don't personally sell them because mine have always got this heavy lip at the end, but you can get one with a beveled edge and a the 1/4 inch part. So if you've got one of those, you won't need that extra tool. Okay, so I'm just going to trim off that excess. Okay, we're going to get the H right side facing up, and then we're going to pop this right side down. So you've got your dotted line, which you can see through your paper here. You've got to make sure there's ample overhang on this side, and then you've got your solid line here. Make sure there's enough overhang of 1/4 inch on that side. Flip that over, add a pin, pin those together, and then all I'm doing is sewing from that part there to that part there along that solid line. I'm not going to go over that solid lines either side of that small solid line. Okay, so I've gone ahead and sewn from there to there. I'm just going to get rid of that excess there. Okay, and then we're just going to press that, bring it up, and press that into place. Okay, so I've got that pressed open, flip that over, got a nice overhang all the way around. Now we're moving on to section 3, which is the section here, this large section. So we're going to fold it on this solid line here. And we're going to find our H3 patch, which is this one. Okay, I'm going to cut off the excess, not that roll, this roll. Okay, so this one is going to be at an angle, so it's hit and miss. So what you want to do is, where I've done it is actually ample enough. Personally, I'm just going to move it over, and there's a reason for that. When I flip this over, this fabric will follow. So you can always do what I used to do is grab it from underneath, pinch it. Oh, she says. You can always pop that down, flip that over, flip that part there, pinch that bit to make sure that it's going to go over the patch and it's going the right way. I've got pinched my seam allowance underneath. I'm just going to press that because I know that's the correct way I need to do it. Okay. So the way I've done the H one is got more overhang of fabric from that seam allowance there. So my seam allowance ends there. I've got around about an inch overhang here. And then my seam allowance here on this diagonal part here is about 3/4 of an inch away. Fold that open and pop a pin in to hold all the papers and the fabric. Then you're just going to sew from there to there across that solid line. Okay, so I've just gone from there to there. I'm just going to press that open. Now, because this is the large piece, I will add a little bit of glue just underneath, just for my extra precaution. So on the wrong side, I'm just going to pop a little bit of the glue and stick that down. Okay, and then we're going to move on to section 4, the last section of this. So we're going to fold it along that part there. Trim off this excess. Now this is quite a large piece, so you might want to keep this if you're going to make something else, another block. You might want to keep that because that might come in handy. So I'm just going to put that there. And get the H4 piece patch. Pop that right side facing up. And then I'm just going to match up the edges, making sure I've got a handful of overhang each side. Flip that over, add a pin. And I'm just going to sew from there to there. And then we're just going to press that over. And then I will add a bit of glue just to hold this into place before I cut off the fabric from around the seam allowance. So kids sound happy. Right, okay, so once again we're just going to trim on that dotted line all the way around on that seam allowance. So I'm just going to go over to my other rotary cutter. Bit off there. Okay, and then I've got my HP actually finished. Now, as you can see, that's part of the ghost's mouth or nose, depending on how you want to see it. Right, so off camera, I'm going to go and complete all the other sections for the ghost. Now, it's all self-explanatory. these ones. So I'm just going to complete these sections here and then I'll meet you back. Right, okay, so I've got all my pieces now with all the patches on. So we've now got to join all these together to make the ghost. Now personally, if you just grab your pattern, if you look at the front, you can actually kind of see where all the pieces go. Because I've left all the lines on, so you can identify where everything goes. So put the head there. Bring this in a bit. Put the head there. I know these two go either side, so I'm just going to put that there. Then we've got the nose, which goes here, or the mouth, depending on what you want to do. Then we've got the large section here, which goes there. Is it there? No, yeah, there. Okay, and then the next size goes there, and the next one there, and then the little one is like that. So we're going to basically sew all these together, then we're going to attach the top, and then we're going to attach the two sides. So start off with the small bits first. We know these sections go together. Now if you've got clips or pins, ideal. So let me just get rid of some of that. So we know those two sections go together, right sides together. Okay. Your little cut-offs should actually match each section here. I'm just going to get a pin. You see where those points are on the solid. I'm just going to pop a pin right through. Oh, making sure I get through to the other side. And ideally, you want the pin to come out on that peak there, which mine does. So I'm just going to pop that pin in. Do the same with this corner here as well. Now it's just slightly off there. Close. There you go. So I've got my pin in. I'll pop that in there. And all I'm going to do is sew from that peak to that peak along that solid line. And then I'm not going to go over. Keeping the same stitch allowance as well. Move that pin now. Now I've got my needle down. Move those up. Don't need that now. So I'm just adjusting my papers and that here. Right, okay, so first of all, I'm one of these people with FPP likes to take the paper out of my seam allowance before I press it. So I've got paper here, so I'm just going to fold it and I'm just going to tear. And now because we've used a nice stitch length and a good sized needle, we can tear it. So I'm just going to tear it that side, flip it over and repeat the same on this side. Okay, I've got a habit of, I used to, got a habit of forgetting the papers in the seams. And then I used to sandwich all the quilt together and then you would see little pieces of paper floating around. So get into the habit of ripping it out of your seam. And then we're just going to press this towards this section here. We're not going to press it open. Okay, and that's the first part done. Okay, so I've pressed the seam towards the small section. Now we're going to press the seam always down on these bits here. So let me just get these back into place. We're going to match these parts up now, next, for these two pieces. Pop a pin through those dominant corners. Yeah. Same with this side here. Okay, and then we're going to sew from there to there along that solid line. Okay, so don't forget to fold on that seam allowance where that paper is and just tear it away. But leave it attached to the other pieces, the other places. Just skin it out of that seam allowance. And then we are going to press it towards those two patches that we sewed together. So have those on top, set that seam, and press that towards those two patches. Ignore the mess. This aggravates me that I've got a few burnt marks. I need to recover it. Okay, so I've done that. We're going to attach this one to this one. Right sides together. Pop a pin in on that solid top corner. Make sure it comes out. It hasn't. Let me just rearrange that. Better. And then move that around so it matches up for that edge there. And then do the same with this one. No, no, no. That's better. I'm going to readjust this because it's not perfect. That's better. Right, okay, so I'm just going to sew from there to there on that solid line there. Okay, rip that paper out that seams. And then we're going to press it towards the three that we've already joined together. So make sure they're on top. Okay, join this part to this part. Okay, so we're going to make sure that lines up with that bit. So we're going to put that over. And the trick is that flat bit there on this part should match up. I'll pop a pin through. That should come out on that side, which it does. And we're just going to bring this round. pin, and that's gone through. Then we're just going to sew from there to there along that solid line there. Okay, and then we're just going to peel off that excess of that paper at the same length, sorry. Okay, and then we're just going to press it. Have the 4 patches that we've already joined facing up. Press that seam, and then we're going to press that down towards the other patches, so that seam's going towards these patches. Now that will keep popping up, that little one, just ignore it. Once we've got the 2 side pieces, the A and the B sections, it will flatten itself out, so don't stress as this might keep wanting to come up. So we're going to touch the C section on top, quite self-explanatory, the eyes on top. Pin through that corner there. Make sure it comes out in that corner. It hasn't. I'm just going to move it over just a wee little bit. Oh no, it's a bit too much. There you go. Pop a pin in. And repeat the same process on the other one. No. Okay, and pop a pin in. Then we're just going to sew on that solid line there. Okay, so peel off that excess out the seam lines of paper. Okay, and then repeat the same on this one. So you've got 2 pieces that we need to. Oh. So ripped it out of that part, just rip it out of that part as well, that bit underneath. And make sure you catch it from inside there as well, so make sure there's nothing in that area. Then we're just going to press this so it goes, okay, so we've got that bit there. Now if you find it a bit bulky underneath here, you could open this seam up. This is technically the only seam I would open up if that's the case. So I think I might just go ahead and do that because it's a bit bulky where the eye section is. Okay, so I've opened that up. Now because I've opened it up, I'm going to get rid of this paper out of this triangle section there. So that's H1 and H2. I'm just going to get my pin in. And there's a reason for that is so I don't forget that I need to take them out when it comes to when I have to peel off the papers. So I've done that bit. The other thing that I've just noticed is these keep flapping up. So if that happens to you, just get a bit of glue and pop it in underneath where it's flapping, and then stick it down. That just stops it from moving around. Okay, and then we're just going to attach these 2 side pieces here. Okay, and then I'm just going to sew on that solid line there. I'm going to peel off the paper within the seam allowance on both sides. Okay, and then I'm just going to press this so it's over to that way. Okay, then we're just going to repeat the same process and attach this side here. Right, okay, so that ghost is now complete. Boo is complete. So off camera, I'm just going to go ahead and complete these blocks. Now, I've kept them in sections, so that's these two pieces, the O pieces, and these two pieces are the O pieces, and then these two pieces are the B pieces. Go ahead, follow the same method as what we taught on that piece there and that piece there on all of these, sew them together to make BOO, and then I'll meet you back. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done the B and the two O's. Now, just word of warning, when you come to join the two sections on the B, make sure you rip the paper out the seam lines, but then press it open because there's quite a few joins on each side on those seams. It's best just to press that one open, but the rest you can just press down towards the smaller section that you need to. Okay, so the first one I'm going to do is join all these three together. I'm just going to put those right sides together and then just sew off along that edge there. Okay, and then while I'm here, I'm just going to peel off the seam allowance paper. Okay, and then I'm just going to go one step further. I'm going to open this out, and then on the other side of the O, I'm going to pop the other O. You've got a long, thin piece of A fabric here, so you need that to join that side of the O. So if you actually look at it, when I turn it this way, it should look like that. So I'm just going to join that one together, making sure they're right sides together. Then I'm just going to peel off that paper out that seam lines. Okay. Right, I'm just going to move these out of the way for a minute. And I'm just going to press this. And all I'm doing is pressing the seams towards the O sections. So I've done that one. And the last bit, press it towards the other O. Give that just a good press. Okay, so the next thing you're going to join is the Boo Ghost and the Boo saying together. So right sides together. match that up, and then you're just going to sew a quarter of an inch away from the edge and keeping the same stitch length. And press it first to one side, be a bit bulky, but once we press it open it will be fine. Put that over and just give that a good press and just turn up the temperature a bit. Okay, that's the inner part of the block sorted, and then we're just going to add the borders. So I'm just going to add the two side borders. They are longer than what they actually need to be. I'm just making sure they're the right ones. Actually no, they're actually perfect. If they are slightly longer than your actual centre block piece, just trim them back. Once you've pressed them open, trim them back. I'm going to pop these on and sew a quarter of an inch away from the edge on both of those. Now I'm going to knock my stitch length up just a little bit to a 2.4, a 1.4, sorry. I'm just going to sew both of those together. And you're going to press the seams out towards the borders. To set the seams. Get rid of that piece. Set the seams. And you're just going to flip this open and set the seam over towards the border. Do the same for this one. And then you're going to add your top and the bottom. So you're going to add your top and your bottom the same way. So I'll meet you back once I've done that. And there you go. We have one finished. Boo! The friendly ghost block. So yeah, you can do it in whatever colours you like. I like using Halloween backgrounds kind of colours. You could use like a green. If you want to, you can go down and trim this back. Mine was wonky, so you can just trim it back to the size that you need. So the size that you need is 11 inches by 12 inches, and I know this is slightly bigger than 11 inches by 12 inches, so I will go ahead and trim this back. But yeah, there is going to be other blocks available in the next month or so regarding the value range. Please don't hesitate to message me if you have any problems. Drop a comment below, tell me what fabrics you're going to be using, and please tag us on social media. I've put a tag here, it's Quilt with Rjaf Makes. Please use that tag and tag Rjaf Makes, me. I'd love to see your makes and what you're going to be making out of them. The last thing is, don't forget, every month for the next 6 months, this is block 2, there is free patterns as well on the actual channel. On the actual website as well. So that's just a block. This month's block is the bat out of hell. Last month's was back to school, so it's all like pencil case intoriated. And like I say, these will go, and you can use them as the rather than the ghost. It's totally up to you. Thanks ever so much for joining me on Boo the Friendly Ghost and block of the value block range. Grab them while you can in the first 24 hours. Thank you. See you soon. Bye.